I did my first 100-miler. My coach literally with the feet up, like the typical picture, your feet are blistered, blue, black, and he's like, what's next? And I did Ultraman, Arizona. That was 3 days, definitely the hardest thing I'd ever done. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's do a 100-miler in the mountains. Once you hit 70 miles, when you're doing these long races, everything hurts. Like you're literally in a black hole of pain. Is it just pain or am I gonna die?
It's crazy, like, to think that how you even train for this. How do you fuel for something like this? Like,
let's just say thank God Jeff God came into my world.
welcome back to Optimized by Jeffrey Delaney. Today we have a very special guest. We brought on Brady McDonald, who just ran the Moab 240. What I would say is, would you say it's probably the hardest race in the country? Arguably the hardest race in the country. 240 miles in Moab, Utah. 10,000 feet of elevation. I could never even imagine doing it. We wanted to bring him on. Jeff worked with him a little bit on some nutrition in the 2 weeks leading up to the race, during the race, post-race. So we wanted to come on and talk about your journey, why you did the Moab, what is the Moab, and kind of how you fueled. How do you fuel for such a thing? I would imagine most people couldn't even imagine running 20 miles so much as 240. So Brady, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
So to start, like, when did you start running? Like, what got you into this and why?
Yeah, I started running like 2.5 years ago, pretty seriously. I used to before I was just like on vacation, and I did a couple half Ironmans probably before that, which was kind of a version of trying to get out of drinking and partying. And I realized doing hard things kind of filled that void when you were so used to just socializing and having big boats and drinking all the time. And then, when I eventually quit drinking, it was March of 2023. I signed up for a 50-miler. And just because I'm like, I thought that was an impossible distance. I had a coach and I ended up running the Keys 50, which is down from, halfway down the Keys. Ended up winning it. Ended up spending 3 days in the hospital with rhabdo and dehydration. And my wife said basically you could never, run again. But that was probably fuel to the fire. So then it kind of snowballed from there. I decided, that I would run 100 miles and raise $100,000 for charity. So I trained for another 3 months. I took a bit of 2 or 3 months off, trained for 3 months, did that, ended up raising $92,000 for charity. And then, did Ultraman and then a couple mountain 100-milers after that. And I've DNF'd. I DNF'd, and it kind of gets into this year where I signed up for Moab. I think it's in like January you have to sign up for. And I'm nowhere, in January, I'm nowhere thinking that this is, possible for me. But I thought, I don't know where I'm going to be in, 7 or 8 months. I think it's possible. Right. And so I just threw my name in the hat, and it's a lottery. Most people try to get in for 3 years at a time, 3 years in a row, and don't get in still. So, but yeah, I got that email.
And they cap it to like 300, I think, right?
Yeah, 300.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's funny because I read something on this yesterday. It said something to the effect of like, it's using drugs and alcohol to escape is all fun and games until you need to escape drugs and alcohol. Why do you think running, like, how does running help you from like a mental standpoint? I just feel like so many people turn to like long distance runs when they're trying to change their life a little. Like, what about running to you?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily running. It was doing hard things. Because first it was Ironman. I did a couple half Ironman, and I didn't know how to swim. I didn't know how to run or bike like that. And I hired a coach, and I, focused on that for 4 months. But when you're trying to quit something, or, you have to fill the void. I think often people try to quit something or reduce something in their life, but they don't fill it with something that's productive. And I just don't think it works. And so for me, I realized that doing hard things, it gives you that release of that energy that you're looking for, that angst, that anxiety, whatever it is that you're trying to, that the alcohol is doing or drug is doing for you. That exercise is medicine. Yeah. And I know that to be true. And, but once, I've been the other way too, where I realized that this was true and it was medicine for me. But then when I stop it, I went back to the same people doing the same things, and I go back and doing the exact same habits. Yeah. So once I realized that over time, because I did learn that, hey, I can drink and do all this hard stuff too. Because, hey, we're smart. We can adapt. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I eventually realized that I was like, using it to deal with fear in the business. We were, we had some big business problems, and like we were losing money like crazy, like 800,000 a month.
Damn.
And I was using it like with fear. And this is like one of the God moments that I had before I even had a faith in God. But we were in the Bahamas, in the Exumas. I was on my 53-foot boat looking out at the sunset, and whatever came upon me, I told my wife that tomorrow's the last day I'm ever drinking again. And, of course I didn't just have one beer. I had a bunch. I had two at a time. And, but that was it. It was like a light switch. And, and then it was just very focused on, hey, I need to become a better dad. I need to become I watched my dad kill himself essentially, like not like actually, but over time. And that's what alcohol does to us. And we just don't know it. It's a socially acceptable drug. And I realized that, hey, my kids are not doing what I say, they do what I do. And I really realized, I just had that moment with God. I think that I saw what their future looked like if I didn't stop.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's awesome. So you quit drinking, start running Ironman, start running races. Being that I've done it to a very lesser extent to a scale that you do it, I understand the idea of like you finish one race and it's like this, what's next?
Yeah.
Right. You run a marathon. It's like, it's not as cool to run another marathon.
Yeah.
You're trying to get up the ante a little bit. So like, what was your bridge between running Ironmans to now running a 240-mile race?
Yeah. So I did my first 100-miler. My coach literally with the feet up, like the typical picture, your feet are blistered, blue, black. And he's like, what's next? And I did Ultraman, Arizona. And so that's where you swim 6.2 miles. It's like a 272-mile bike and then a 52-mile run, 3 days in a row.
Damn.
So I did that. That was 3 days, definitely the hardest thing I'd ever done. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's do a 100-miler in the mountains, right? I know I can go the distance, but mountains is a new thing. Obviously, we live at sea level here. So that was just a new layer of hard, right? And just a different way to train. And then eventually, what got me to I DNF'd last May in Zion. So it was a 100-miler. I was going for a sub 24-hour race. That was like the new challenge. So it wasn't necessarily that I was going further. It was, okay, the new challenge is doing 100 miles in the mountains.
Yep.
Okay, the new challenge is now that I finished one, let's see if we can do sub 24 in the mountains with 10,000 or 13,000 feet of elevation. Well, I ended up DNFing at, I was in 26th place out of 300. And DNF'd at mile 80, 79, 80. I just was coughing up green phlegm. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I just couldn't get my breath. And I just got scared. And I think, God told me that you just got to chill out, dude. And I've had lung issues before. I had lung issues at Moab.
Yeah.
I've had lung issues. I had pulmonary edema during Ultraman, where the lungs fill up with fluid. Mm-hmm. And we were going into a remote area in this race. And I just decided to pull the plug. So I immediately came home, switched the gears, just into problem solving mode, and went to a pulmonologist. He says you get exercise-induced asthma basically within 10 minutes of running. So I've been doing all this stuff with asthma. And so he gave me an inhaler. So I'm like, okay, well, perfect. I don't want to wait till Moab to test it to see if this works. So I signed up it was 10 days later, the Sedona Canyon's 125. So this was in April, March, April. This was in May, so Zion was in April. Mm-hmm. So then, so 125 is only 25% more than 100, but it was the hardest thing ever. Like, it was 41 hours, but the lungs worked, so that was the good news. And that's kind of how I was like, okay, well, now I know the lungs are good. I've gone half the distance. Obviously, we're training now for Moab.
Just double it.
Yeah, just double it. So I did take a bit of an off season, April, May, June, probably, and then did a 3-month training block going into Moab.
Nice. I think to speak to what you said about the lung thing is like, unless you're an athlete or even specifically maybe like an ultra athlete, it's hard to understand that there's something that happens where you have to make a decision where am I just in pain or is this like an injury? And I think it's, at least in my experience, it's very hard to tell the difference between the two in the moment. Did you experience that in the Moab where you were like, I don't know if my knee is broken right now or like my quads are broken or I'm just in pain? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, did you have any of that?
Yeah. I mean, pain is constant.
Yeah.
It's really like, I think there's always pain. I think that's the difference. Like once you get into like 70 miles it's just different than even a 50-miler. Everything's just different. I think like once you hit 70 miles when you're doing these long races, everything hurts. Like you're literally in a black hole of pain. So It's more that is it just pain or am I gonna die?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's more of a better question because that's a different. It's harder to differentiate the two, and that's really what you need to decide because the pain is always, right? And we can tolerate pain, but we don't want to die.
Right.
So, like, how do you find that fine line? And that's a very fine line because, like, I put myself in the hospital for 3 days once before.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people that are listening, I think the question they have right now would be like, Brady, why in the world would you even do this?
Yeah, that's a really good
or
question.
maybe after you've already done one of the hardest things known to man, it's like, most people are like, all right, I've been there, done that, I'm done. Like you're looking for the next, which is kind of cool. I mean, like,
yeah, because I don't think it's not like you just check the box. I mean, I think men and women, I think men specifically are builders. Like, I mean, I want to build myself. I want to build communities. I want to build people. I know this is inspiring people. But not only that, like this is kind of Moab was a bit of a stepping stone to what's next. And I think God's going to use my body to help a lot more people. And I think it was just like a test. And so I think I passed the test. And now it's time to like, let's go actually, start impacting some lives versus just being cool and being able to do hard stuff.
Yeah. No, I love that. So when you train for things like you're in the gym, like you want to bench 250, like, you progressively, you start working your way, benching heavier, benching 250. Obviously you can't train by running 240 miles. So like, can you explain for the people, like what does it look like to train for a race like this?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the training for everybody is probably a little bit different, but there's a generic, like, theory that, for running long distances where you do like a 2 week or usually a 2 or 3 week ramp up and then a 1 week, like a smaller week.
like a deload.
And so your kind of ramp ups are kind of going like that. And the mileage is increasing week over week. And then you'd have a lower week. So that's kind of how it works. And it worked all the way up to 103 miles for this race.
For the week?
For a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, to train, to be honest, for a 100-miler is not much different. So my peak 100-milers would be like 78 miles. The difference between this one and the 100-milers, what I did differently was, so you do back-to-back training. So you'd be, you might, on the weekends, you might do 37 miles on Saturday and 24 miles as an example on Sunday. So that back-to-back combined effort and wear and tear and that Sunday you're running on tired legs is a good simulation effort for the longer races. And then of course recovering and then being able to do that all over again. So that's kind of how that works. But one of the things that I did differently on this one was I walked. I got sick on one of my peak weeks. I'm like, well, I don't want to waste it. But I'm probably not going to go and run another 30 miles today because that's like it's just going to take me out for 2 or 3 more weeks. So I put a rucksack on. I walked for 4 hours, and this was 3 weeks out from Moab, and I destroyed my legs. Like I was in worse pain than running 37 miles, and I had blisters all over my feet, on my heels, and on my toes. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me because, like that, we ended up walking probably 50% of this race or 40% of it, maybe 60, right?
Yeah.
It was pretty mucky. It was, we walked a lot. So that actually worked out in my favor. So I ended up doing a 12-hour walk after that and, banged out 42 miles, just walked, put my headphones on, worked all day. It was a Friday.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up I probably ended up walking 42 and ran 61 on the peak week.
It's crazy to think about. Like, just on the weekend, I'm just going to hit 2 marathons, Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Like most people just wish they could finish a marathon. He's like banging it out for training.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, how do you balance that high level of training with making sure you're not going to get injured before the race?
Yeah. I mean, that is the hard part, right? Yeah. I mean, you got to be really careful. And the biggest, I've got durability now because I've done this a little bit, but especially going into your first ultra, even a marathon. I mean, the biggest thing is our brains, when we start out, are way more powerful than our bodies. Like our tendons, our knee, like just our joints, the muscles are nowhere near as strong as your brain. And we will, destroy our Achilles tendons. We'll destroy our IT bands. And so that's the biggest thing. If everybody's going to start, it takes as much discipline to go slow and not do so many miles as it does to actually do the race.
Yep.
It's more discipline probably to train properly. But once you get the durability, it's definitely easier because you don't have to worry about those little, repetitive injuries. But you have to listen to your body at the end of the day. I mean, is it like there's not just a one fits all? It's you have to listen to your body. And when I'm sick, I get sick. I always get sick during a training block, and I just pause basically.
Yeah. And are you training like when you're in your training for like a 240-mile race? So are you training pretty much 100% of the time for distance, or would you mix in a day that's for like tempo speed? So you're trying to hit like a time goal. Like what did that look like?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Yeah. So earlier in the training block, we definitely do have a speed day and then multiple strength days per week as well.
Yeah.
Once we start doing the final ramp up, I mean, I have, and with my coaches before, had still did strength in that. It's just almost too much. This time I cut the strength right out.
So you're not hitting legs
on the last like 5-6 weeks.
No legs.
No legs. And it made it way more bearable, like to get the training in for one. And then I also just I think it was just overall better for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of the coaches will put strength all the way through for the most part too. And so again, I don't know what's right or wrong. That's just what I did this time, and it seemed to work out pretty good.
Yeah, because I've heard like different theory. Obviously, everybody has their own theory on what's the best way to do this. But I was listening to Nick Bear the other day talk about how like where a lot of people get it wrong is it's actually to get faster in your training, you should run slower. Is his theory, where it's like 80% of your runs should be below your VO2.
Yeah.
And then one run a week should be a tempo or like lactic acid buildup kind of sprint run.
Yeah, speed work.
And like that's like over time durability, like the best way to run longer for faster.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and that would be similar to what I was doing. Like I'm always running. If I'm running any distance outside of speed work, then it's usually like an all-day pace, I call it.
Yeah.
Like
a conversational.
It's like 10 15s, 10 20s for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. And then, so that's the training. So I know you guys work together, at least in the latter part of the training, on nutrition, fueling. Could you guys walk me through what that looks like? Like how, again, it's crazy like to think that how you even train for this. How do you fuel for something like this? Like,
let's just say, thank God Jeff came into my world.
Well, I think that's a overlooked thing for a lot of, especially when you're dealing with that much like distance and time. And it's like, you got to make sure your gas tank, once you fill it up right, you have to keep it full, because that's why a lot of people do not finish, or they end up having injuries along the way. Is just the muscles get fatigued, and then ligaments, tendons, joints take up run of the work, and then shit starts breaking. So it's, I think that's sometimes overlooked by some. I mean, you had a pretty solid kind of setup going into that with a lot of your fueling on the hour. I mean, all we really did was more tweak it and add in some cool things to really like allow him to go further, longer, and that was more just working to buffer lactic acid through that. Something I don't think he was doing at all was, a big game changer. And it's funny because almost every day now I see people posting things on baking soda. I've used it for 2 decades.
Really?
It's probably one of the cheapest, easiest things you could use to buffer lactic acid. I mean, if you're using it in the gym, you're going to be able to get, train longer, more reps. It's kind of along the same lines. A lot of people will give the analogy like with beta alanine, but it works very differently. And it could be, it can work against you if you do too much. So that's kind of where the art comes in, is like, how can I, and for him, I've never dealt with anybody on like an ultra marathon or anything like that. It was always more just short performance training, or maybe a triathlon, or maybe a marathon. So, for him, it was like, but the concept's the same. Is like, how can I support like his output the entire way?
So like, obviously you're in your training block for weeks to months for this. So the way you're going to be fueling then is very different from the way you'd be fueling in the 5 to 7 days leading up to
it was
Moab.
Probably ideally wouldn't have been, right? We probably would have trained if Jeff and I had talked earlier, we probably would have trained the entire way, the way that he set me up.
So what were you doing prior to working with Jeff? And then if you could speak to what you saw and then changed.
Yeah. So what I've done even previous to this race was I was eating like 200 to 300 calories an hour and then having an electrolyte. That was basically it. So I was
every day or mid run?
That would be every hour on, for the runs.
Okay.
And not even, that's just the race. Like, and I might not train like that if I generally wouldn't eat or fuel if it's under 2 hours.
Sure.
Just because I don't want the extra calories, right?
Yep.
But then this particular race, I started drinking about 200 grams or 200 calories, which was it about 70 grams of carbs?
75, I think.
75 grams of carbs, as well as eating the 200 grams of calories in a gel. And so I was doing that already, but then what the missing pieces was everything else that Jeff put in the in the drinks. So which I think is what probably matters the most.
Well, and I'll kind of take a step back is, a lot of people too try to carb up for these events, and they'll just eat whatever, or they'll not eat enough. They'll do it short notice. And, it takes 48 to 72 hours to set glycogen, to fill muscle glycogen up completely. So making sure you start early enough and kind of fill the gas tank up to start, so he's not going into whatever, event or for his, ultra marathon type deal, with not enough gas in the tank. And then the goal was, once we get the tank set, it's like, how can we keep topping the gas tank off? And, that was more the intro, but, I'm big into like doing everything off of lean muscle tissue. So we actually saturated him. I think 3 days out, I did 1.5 times what his body can handle for saturation. There's a calculation for that, but basically I think we did like 800 grams of carbs. Was that on a Tuesday? Yeah. So we did that on a Tuesday. And then the other thing is,
lay in bed all day?
Yeah. Well, and it was carbs only. We took protein, fat out, so we could drive the carbs a little bit better. I was really, adamant about making sure we start setting electrolytes properly early while we did that. So, but he ended up eating mostly carbohydrates multiple days out. That's the other thing that a lot of people try to do at last minute, and then they run heavy and they're sluggish and they're lethargic. So it's like, let's set it early. Let's kind of top it off, get some work to move some of it too. Cause a lot of times if you try to set it and then, you don't do a little bit of work in between, it doesn't sit the same way. And I feel like sometimes over carb loading and short notice carb loading, you could throw electrolytes off. Muscles could only handle so much at a certain time. So once you kind of spill out, a lot of times you could throw off electrolyte balance, which would have created like more cramping and, just muscle contraction issues as he trained. So the goal was like, let's set the foundation super solid early. And so we loaded him usually one at a time. Well, I did 1.5 times saturation Tuesday. Wednesday, we ended up going like just straight up saturation with a little bit of, I think you did a walk jog, just so we could put some of that food you were consuming to work. Still setting electrolytes, still setting baking soda, which we strategically kind of put in there. And then I think we did like 70. I think I kept it saturation day on Thursday. And then there was a little bit of stuff we did kind of right before the race, big meal that morning. But I do like using carb powders. That's something that, whether you do like a highly branched chain cyclodextrin, which is more a faster carbohydrate, but I think one of the big things that probably made a huge difference in as you got the latter part of the race was carbolin, which is a homopolysaccharide. So it's a carbohydrate that shuttles like sugar, but it has like a longer window. It stays with you a little bit longer. Because if it wasn't for that, I think you would have definitely, the gas tank with the faster carbs would have been out, and then you would have been running on fumes towards the tail end.
Yeah, and there was one point about halfway through where I was just like, I could just tell I was low on. And so I think that was when we had a nap, and then I drank one of those like 4-hour ones with the slower acting carbs before I went to bed and when I woke up. After the hour and a half nap.
Yeah, and that just kind of sets a little bit more longer acting carb with him. But it was small increments. And like, so I'm big into, especially if you're ever going to do something, don't completely go like 360. Like I tried to say, Brady, what are you used to? What have you done? How can we just kind of tweak a couple things to really support and not overhaul what he's accustomed to?
Yeah. I think something that you said that's important that I never really even took into account until I started working with you was, you grew up thinking like you play sports as a kid and all you know is like, oh, eat pasta the night before the big game or whatever it is. Like you're going to like that your carbing period is that night before. And then once we started working with you and we were running those races, carb loading days prior made the world of a difference.
Big time.
And like even granted, when we ran that Diamondback, that's 1/8 of what you just ran, 33 miles. I think I finished that. And I've never felt that was the first time I've ever carb loaded days prior as opposed to the day prior. And I've never felt such a difference out of the gate. Like the first 20 miles felt like 5.
I think you said you got to, you were at 100 and you were like, pff.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, I was halfway through this, and I was like, I can't believe how good I feel.
Well, we did like
I don't even want to say this out loud. Like,
you didn't want to jinx
it. Like, when is it gonna suck?
Well, and he did like a mini run. I mean, he did like a 10 or 15 miler, I think, prior to, and I said, let's just so I can make sure you're good. Let's use it during that. And I think you felt like it was fresh. Like, no,
yeah. So you mentioned baking soda.
Yep.
Walk me through how you would eat baking soda.
Well, so baking soda itself will help buffer lactic acid better than anything out there. So a lot of times when you train muscles contract, lactic acid starts in the muscle, and then eventually it'll start kind of like taking its effect. That's typically what causes that aching and that burn, and just it almost like seizes the muscle up. And so, to delay the lactic acid buildup is going to allow you to train harder, stronger, longer. It makes a huge difference, especially for endurance type athletes. So we did a little bit of it prior to, but during the race is when it's most crucial. Now the problem, and I kind of told him, is I like beta alanine. A lot of people go to beta alanine because they're like, oh, that's the thing that's going to, and it will kind of prevent lactic acid from building up more where it starts in the muscle, but it takes about a month to get into the system, and still it's not going to clean up like baking soda or be as fast as baking soda. So think of like beta alanine, like trying to prevent the lactic acid in the muscle as it's about to start creating lactic acid. And then you have baking soda, which is like a sponge outside the muscle that will basically pull whatever lactic acid it can, and it'll kind of get it out of the muscle as much as possible and buffer it taking effect on your system.
And you're putting the baking soda in your water?
Yep. Put it in so we pre-mixed every drink powder.
Yep.
Yeah. And so basically every single drink I had that entire race had baking soda in it.
That's crazy. Nobody ever takes into account the logistical nightmare that is what you just did.
But a whole team like putting together like everything ahead of time.
Yeah. There was 7 people, like, including me, on the team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because you're 240 miles, a giant loop. And so you're, basically 120 miles away from the city, and there really wasn't any other towns. So like they were in the middle of nowhere. We ended up getting Starlink, like the Starlink travel, so that way they'd have the internet and be able to get the updates and give updates on social media and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they would be driving like back and forth like 6 times in a day.
Yeah.
Just running crew. And
it's funny because like I love this stuff, but if your average person, if you explain to them how much time, money, logistics, like how much you have to input to then run 240 miles as opposed it would be a lot easier for people to do it if like you got paid
you don't
to
want to do
this.
the math.
Yeah.
People say running is cheap, but it's not.
This
isn't. This is very expensive.
So that's how you fueled them up to it. There was more?
So I would say like setting things right, getting carbohydrates set was the big one. Is like, let's make sure our tank's already full, because if we would have started with less carbohydrates, we've been behind the 8 ball the entire race. But also making sure we're buffering lactic acid every step of the way, because if not, once it sets in, he would have probably went slower. Things would have started seizing up. And so I would say that's probably one of the biggest things that probably made a huge difference in just how you felt through the process. We did do a couple of things, still making sure electrolytes were set, kind of putting different speeds of carbohydrates in along with his NACs and what was the other one that you used? Tailwinds. Yeah. So you kind of alternated those. And we tried to have like those are more short hourly, and then every 4 hours, putting in like the carbohydrate drink, the HBCD, the Carbolin, baking soda still. One of the kind of things which you're familiar with was BPC 157. So I actually had him sprinkle that in all the gels and his drinks throughout the entire way, which BPC is a gastric pentadecapeptide. It works mainly in gut, decreases gut inflammation, but it keeps systemic inflammation down. So like as he was going, we just tried to kind of prevent total body inflammation as he was going.
And were you on BPC prior to?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was saying, wouldn't it take a little bit longer to set?
Yeah, but were you were doing the oral BPC? Well, I mean, we started when I saw you, but were you doing oral BPC going in when I saw you?
Yeah,
I think
before,
so just kind of keeping inflammation down, a lot of like the tweaks, and then you know, I had him actually take, I don't know how many times he actually used it. That's kind of why it would have been nice that last part where the quads started seizing up.
that we were running right to the end.
If you would have had it, it would have been, he was so close towards the end. You were within 20 miles. It was the last aid
station, 14 miles to go.
Yeah.
When the quad seized
So it's probably the longest 14 miles.
Oh, dude.
Well, especially when like you've gone so far and then now that, you know, it was your right quad or left
moving
quad.
kind of quick, but
I just think that's
hurt. It hurt every step.
I think that's so funny to like put into perspective because like for someone that's just out there that, you know, runs like a couple miles every day, like you run 2 miles and it's like, you're like the third mile is like the worst thing in the world too. And you're like, yeah, I ran 220, but that last 18, you know, it's like just like the scalability of that. So crazy.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you did for him prior going into the race before like intra race fueling?
I mean, I think we started setting some creatine. We had, refresh my memory. I know we had electrolytes, essential amino acids, which is the building block of muscle. We just did everything we possibly could to just support like the wear and tear that he was taking, especially at the muscle level. You know, I was kind of worried because I didn't have any experience with him with baking soda. So I did play it conservative with him just because taking too much can cause GI distress. Like last thing you want to do is shit your brains out when you're trying to run.
Yeah.
So, you know, just making sure we played conservative with it. I think you could probably go a little bit more now that, because you didn't really have any GI discomfort or whatsoever through it. You know, I the big one was to just keep electrolytes rolling, you know, and just stay, even though you don't want to eat or you don't want to have something, you know, make sure you have that consistent gas coming in just so you don't let that tank get empty. So like we said, but most of the, like out of all that shit, you know, it's not many people could say they've done that. I mean, to be mentally is probably the biggest thing you have to deal with during, you know, an event like that. And so, you know, I always say like, I just helped and supported a little bit, you know, but it does play into that. Like if you're not feeling like crap, you're mentally better into it. Well, so it all goes hand in hand.
Oh, it all does. Yeah. Like, I mean, when you go into the pain hole or the body starts hurting more, your body starts slowing down more, 90% of the time when you're doing these things, it's fuel.
Yeah.
Most times. So, I mean,
so to that point is, what did you change anything about his intra race fueling or?
No, so as we got close, we kept it pretty set. I tried to even it out for him because after thinking I would have done a different sequence, but then I'm like, you know what, let's not overcomplicate it because for him, he's doing everything every hour. So we actually started blending what the alternates would have been just to make it like easy.
Super simple.
Not have to like sit there and have like, well, which one am I taking right now? So we did kind of, once again, just a little back and forth on what was he doing, what I would have done. But then once I got more information, I'm like, oh no, we got to like, let's simplify this down and just make consistent hourly type things. And then every 4 hour aid station type things, you know, the food side of things is like, eat what you could eat.
So there basically, there would end up being like the NACs, we'd take a gel or NAC or Spring Energy every hour ish. We'd have like this 1 hour drink that had a bunch of the BBC and the baking soda and the EAAs and all the things in Tailwinds.
Okay.
Every hour. And then every 4 to 6 hours is when we ended up taking this other.
Yeah, the carbolin and highly branching
the longer acting carbs. And that's basically, and then I ate, when I got to the aid station, I would try to eat because you just end up feeling hollow. So I did eat whatever I could at those aid stations. And then, caffeine pills.
Caffeine.
How'd you like those, by the way, the ones that I gave you? Did you end up?
I didn't have to poop myself or
anything.
Like
I mean,
that.
you just, they're clean energy.
Yeah.
It doesn't cause any distress. You don't crash like you normally do from certain types of caffeine.
Yeah, it just like eventually caffeine just didn't work. It was just like I'd be eating these pills.
We can
I
only
was still like walking like a complete zombie. You know, you're just walking. You're looking at your thing, and you end up falling asleep. Like while you're walking, you look back and you're like, it was like an hour, 2 hours, right? And it's like you went 0.01 of a mile.
Damn.
It's like,
and you actually, how often? Because one of the things I think like, depending on the race or type of race, you know, I think you probably took a nap. Like, what was your longest nap? I think you did.
Was 5 hours on the last day.
Eventually,
I did eventually have that because I ended up the very first night I didn't sleep. So we started at noon on the Friday. Didn't sleep the first night. The second night the next morning I had a 15-minute nap.
I saw you taking the backpack naps in the desert.
Yeah, a lot of dirt naps. Yeah. And then that second night I had an hour and a half. Third night, and then I probably had another dirt nap sometime during the day. And then the third night, I had another hour and a half. That fourth night, Well, this was after we spent like time at elevation, and I was just like, it took us 9 hours to go 14 miles. Like we were in between 10 and 11,000 feet, mud trails, and basically dying. Blood oxygen at 80% or less.
Yeah.
And that night I was just like so demotivated. I'm just like, I don't give a rat's butt.
And hypoxia will tax the crap out of you faster than anything. It almost like just zap hypoxia, lack of oxygen.
Oh yeah.
I mean, especially running in the 80s, like that will drain your battery.
I was in the
so
80s
fast.
probably for 2 days.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So like where are you going mentally at this point? Like what's keeping you, because you can quit it at literally any time.
Yeah, you could. Honestly, Case, this race is so much different than any other race I've ever had. I've definitely recently connected with God, and like that in its whole gave me this overall calm that I've never experienced before, and not just in the race, but also just in life in general. And so, yeah, during those moments, I mean, I had, I prayed a lot and, would talk to him and, just, and it's really, so that helped a lot. Yep. And then my wife would even say, she never said this to me, but like we shot a documentary, so we've got lots of footage, but she talked to our guy that was the videographer and got her opinion on how it was going down. And it was the same thing, same words that I said. And it was just like, there was never that, it was never, I knew I had control, or we had control.
Well, you had like I think remember you saying you just felt like you had this sense of just peace.
Yeah. Even when it was the worst, and I'd FaceTime Christy, or she'd see me and she was just like, what's going on with this guy? Like you should not and it was hell. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it was, so like I said, when it takes you 9 hours to go 14 miles and it's torrential downpouring, you're in mud this deep, and you're going up mountains this steep and down mountains that steep,
cold as shit,
and it's cold as shit. It sucks. I mean, but it's just really bizarre, and it's a new experience for me to be able to do that through and have a peaceful mind. It looking back on it, it's probably one of the most beautiful things that I've ever experienced. Like the very first time I ever experienced God was when I ran 100 miles, and it was like, and I wasn't even thinking that this is what it was, but it was like, it felt like an angel was carrying me. I had no other words to explain it because I wasn't looking into my faith. I didn't know what that was. And then after that, like the next day, it was gray and cloudy, but it was still beautiful.
Yeah,
that's what this race was like during it, which is, it was, because it was nasty. It was. Yeah. We had flash floods. We were crossing rivers since day one, torrential downpour, mud, nonstop everywhere, up mountains, down mountains. Like you're sliding. You're literally, I watched one guy, Andrew Glaze, climbing up a mountain on his knees and hands because he couldn't get his footprints. He's pulling on branches. But there was just this peace. Yeah. Like in all of in the fire.
Yeah.
Right. There's peace. And it was just.
Well, I think too, sometimes
so
where like, being that you've gotten more like religious and with God, and I think you have in your mind bigger things that you're looking to do. And a lot of times when, I always say like with God, when you plan to do bigger things that are not so much selfish, but more selfless, and you almost get this hedge of protection over you. And like I said, you have a sense of peace, and it's just, you get this support, and sometimes just, you're able to do things that you probably wouldn't have been able to do alone without.
Yeah, because I think you rely on yourself.
Yep.
And then you allow yourself to get frustrated because you feel like you are the one in control. But at the end of the day, we're not. I mean, I wasn't. I just had to put in the work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? Like, and it was going to work out.
That's awesome. So you ran obviously a lot of races prior to this. With what you did working with Jeff in the days leading up to, and with the intra, what difference did you feel a difference energy wise in this race? Like, what was the feeling there?
Yeah. Like, although the, life sucked a lot of the time, right? The pain that I normally feel, like I remember telling you like once you get to 70, it's just like, it's like a wall of pain.
Yeah.
That never did come for some reason. So, I think Jeff could scientifically explain that.
We just buffered it. We just delayed it. is all we did.
And
We
it never
tried the
showed
ESMO,
up. You're delaying it till some other world time.
Till the next race.
Yeah, like I had pain, obviously, like my toes, and sometimes the different toes or like top of the foot or the heel, different things would hurt at different times, but that stuff all goes away, just like every pain.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one, I would tell you too, because when you're on your feet that long and moving blood that long, it's like the pulling that typically happens. And as you get to the later part of that race, and obviously when you're done, obviously we saw like your feet swell up. And that's something that, once again, it was my first rodeo with you, as far as like, and every race will be different. Like you had probably the absolute worst weather conditions for Moab of all things.
They had the
it's
world,
like
record setting rain.
Yeah. You're like, you're not just doing 240. You're going to do 240 with like the hardest obstacles through it, right? Yeah. You're like, great. I mean, like it's almost, you should tell yourself, if you could do that, like, give me what's next.
It was probably like a 350 mile race. It's probably, I don't know.
But I'd say like, like trying to make sure you kind of keep circulation going well. And like, hindsight 2020 is like definitely some really solid compression socks, especially on the mini naps that you do, would make probably a big difference. It would have helped towards the end of the race as far as some of those, and just the wear and tear on the feet or the wear and tear on the feet. So, you did pretty well changing out shoes.
Yeah, changing socks way more frequently than I'd ever have. But like just energy wise, like the energy was there. I did feel when I was like, once you know what good energy feels like too, I think that's what really helped, because when there was a moment where I did get low.
Yep.
And then we had a nap. We loaded back up with the 4 hour, the longer stuff. But yeah, energy wise, it was good. I mean, pain wise, it was good. I mean, there's, the part that caught me off guard was the altitude at the end of the day. Like if I could have solved that, then I would have still stayed in top 40 and would have, but I just, I live at sea level.
Coming from a sea level to altitude with no training in altitude, it's got to make it 100. Like I was just in Denver for wedding, and I walked up to like 7,000 feet, and I was dying.
Yeah,
like heart rate through the roof, like heavy breathing. So I couldn't imagine running 240 miles at that, especially with no training.
We were in between 6,500 and 8,500. Like, I'm just, don't quote me on this, but probably like 70% of the time.
Yeah, that's insane.
And then, which is fine. I was fine up to 8,500. But once I got to 9,000 to 10,000, or to 9,000 to 11,000, just that's when everything just went downhill big time. And then sleep deprivation's very hard too.
Yeah. What was like the lowest point for you out there?
Yeah, I was going over those mountains, dude. Like it's just going over these mountains that just took that amount of time.
Yeah. Because
we're going so slow and the weather was so bad. It was so cold. And dude, like you think you're 4 miles away. You're like, cool, I'm almost there. No. You still have like 4 hours to go.
Yeah.
In those 4 hours, like
the last mile was that where you felt like the worst part was?
Well, that was getting into mile 200.
Yeah.
So that was like
that was right before the home stretch.
190, 186 to.
Do you think that's what taxed your quad when you're like? Did it started bothering you then?
Well, my legs just were gassed.
Yeah,
like I just felt like I would go like 50 feet and I would be bent over the poles trying to catch my breath, and it was just felt like my legs were just gassed. Like there was no oxygen going anywhere. I think.
Yeah.
And then, but no, like my legs were. That next morning we had 40 miles to go. And it rained for another 6 hours, of course. So that was super slow going, getting out of the trails. And then it was, the sun came up and it was, dude, I was seriously thinking about survival, like finding where could we start a fire. It was that cold. It was brutal. Mm-hmm. And looking for places for shelter. Like we were thinking, okay, we might die out here. Mm-hmm. And then eventually we got around the mountain, the sun came out, and we ran for the next like 4 hours. So this is mile like 200, and because it took this is probably mile 210 to 226. We ran the whole time. And then then the quad blew up right on just after the last aid station.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were moving. Like I can't believe how good we were moving.
Yeah, like so. What's the biggest thing that you learned from running this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that anytime you go after, number one, I think we set our goals too small, and then we never give our chance an opportunity to actually accomplish them because we don't start them. So even if you do set a big goal, like if I never started the Moab, like started the race and got, so far into it, I would have never believed I could have accomplished it. Right. You have to see progress by doing. And that was like when I got 40 miles in, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how am I ever going to be able to go another 200 miles? It's impossible. But then you're 100 miles, 120 miles, and you're like, I'm already halfway there. I got this. It's like there's a light switch that happens, and you can put this into your real life, into your real life, into any goal or anything that you might want to accomplish in life. And you have to pick the goal, but you have to take the action. And it's by taking action and creating this belief system by doing and succeeding and by getting things done that you create this pattern that, holy crap, I can actually do this thing. And that's what was boggled in my brain, because 120 miles in, I was like, I got this. This is nothing. And then you start counting down, and it's like, of course it's still hard. Like in the moment, it's still like, it's kind of interesting to say this out loud because it sounds like this isn't hard. Right? Like in my head, I'm downplaying how hard it was.
I don't know. I still don't want to do it.
It's like, in my head, like when I look back, it's like it just became so real and so doable and so accomplishable. And so, yeah, I mean, whether it's starting a business or going back to school, like you got to one sign up, you got to start it.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's the biggest thing.
How have you seen the effect of running these marathons translate into your everyday life?
Yeah, dude. Like, I mean, there's nothing that really shakes me anymore. I mean, I used to still get shaken because I was relying on myself to solve all the world's problems and businesses in my head and everything. A lot of that calmness has come through, creating a relationship with God. But when you do hard things on purpose, right, everything in life, just becomes easier because you can endure. You built a belief system within yourself that, hey, I got this.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing is like, and the coolest thing about it is obviously there's a lot of transformation that happens within yourself when you do hard things because you start to trust yourself. And there's a lot of like, I mean, dude, I would never have trusted myself when I was drinking and carrying on. Like, you just like, am I a good person? Second guessing everything. Like, although yes, I work hard, but like there's this other side of me. It's like, you don't believe yourself half the time. And when you start to get rid of all that bad stuff and you start just to show up and do the right thing and be the good leader and put in the work and show people what's possible and do what you said you're going to do. And you start to like really love yourself.
Yep.
Yeah. Maybe you can speak to why this is scientifically, but the biggest thing like physically that I learned since starting like running the distance like this is it is so cool to see how like malleable and quick to recover your body is. Like even on like, again, a much lesser extent of an example, like those Ragnar races, the relays we did, I think 32 each between four people did 32 their own legs to 126. And like between like, you have your own legs, 1, 2, 3 of 11 miles between like the second and third one. Like the muscle tissue in my knee, like wouldn't fire. I couldn't lift my foot off the ground. And then once you just start running a little bit, it takes like a mile, but your body kind of just goes, well, we're going.
It knows what's up.
And like it just fixes itself. Like it still hurts, but like you start moving again. Yeah. So it's like, it's cool to see that. Like, did you experience that throughout this race? Like, was there a point where you thought you were done, like physically, body wise, and then had to?
No, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Not in this particular race. I mean, probably every time I had a nap. This is wild. Like, I mean, you'd be like legitimately a walking zombie. Yeah. Right. And be like, like I said, like you think you'd fall asleep while you're walking or hiking or running, and you'd think that it was like 10 minutes or an hour. You look at your watch, it literally had been no time. So when it gets to that point, I would always lay down and have a nap for like 10 or 15 minutes max.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And you wake back up and it's like, it's a brand new day. Yeah. Your body starts moving. So like if you were running 14-minute miles before, 15 minutes later, you're back to running 11-minute miles.
Yeah.
Like that's insane to me.
But I think that's also important. Well, I think it's also important too, that short period off, because once you get past a certain point, then it's hard to restart that engine and keep going. So like whether you do multiple mini naps, you're going to get much further and feel much better versus like, other than when you get to a certain point where you're like, holy cow, like I'm definitely taxed, like listening to your body and kind of give it a little bit more recovery. So you did the 5-hour one, but I think what allowed you, I think you even said something too, like Goggins blew past like the first 5 aid stations or something like that.
Yeah, I think he cruised by them pretty quick.
Yeah,
Like,
Did seeing him out there give you a little fuel? You're like, I gotta keep track
we
of
did
this
talk
guy?
to him at the very start.
did?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. We did. We talked to him at the very start. It was interesting. Because we had our videographer there, and said, we asked, like, do you mind if we turn the camera on? And he's like, no. Basically, because he doesn't want to. He's like, I'm not talking shit. I got work to do. Is essentially what he said. This is before the race.
Yeah.
But one kid did ask him, like, why do you do this? And he's like, well, do you do them? And the kid's like, no, but my mom does. He's like, well, why does she do them? And and then he says something, and Goggins said at the end of the day, like, I do this to push myself because, and then we interviewed him after. So we did interview him, and you should see this clip, dude. This was powerful. At the end of the day, he's like, in those 5 hours or 4 days or 5 days that it takes me out there to grind and to battle it out in my own head and to go through the failures and the health issues and like everything. He's like, that takes 10 years of actual life to get that level of experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's like, I can get all that done in 4 or 5 days. He's
That's
like,
true.
he's like, I wish I did this when I was in my 20s.
Well, just to having that big of a win mentally, like you were saying, like actually accomplishing even something so small, it's like you stack those and they turn into bigger things, and it correlates to not just physical aspect of your life, but like everything that you do. It's like if you test your system and you're able to overcome it, it's like now it's like you're I don't want to say like your thermostat for pain or your pain tolerance goes up so much more. And like I said, no matter what happens, that's hard. You deal with it completely different or much, much better than you would if you never, ever endured the pain.
Yeah.
So
And I think we're capable of, like, we all know what our greatest accomplishments are, but that's like nothing compared to what we're actually capable of.
Right.
Like, and I'm not talking just in the physical fitness world.
Yeah.
I'm talking everything in business, in your relationships, in your faith. Like, we haven't even scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Like, me included.
Well, and this is, this will shut it all down quick. So it's like once I kind of use the analogy, like everyone's like, well, what do you think about cold plunge? It has tons of benefits, but like it's the mental win to do that hard thing consistently over time correlates to so many other things in your life. It's like, so it's just, but for you, you're doing multiple hard things. I see you cold plunge. I see you do, like ultra marathons, and now the Moab 240. It's like, dude, you're like, I could do anything.
I can pretty much do it.
Yeah. And then, so this won't ever hold you back.
Yeah.
It might be skill or something but you'll figure it out and get it over time. Like you're going to have, by stacking those hard wins, it's just, you're going to stack a lot more wins across the board.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like, just in a society where everybody is, not everybody, but most people are weak. I mean, we're making, our bodies want us to be comforted, and then society wants us all to be okay and safe and protected and all that stuff. Well, the only way to succeed in this life right now is to, like, be the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And, like, I've got 2 young girls, and like I said back before, like, they won't do what I say, but they will do what I do. And, like, I know they're watching. And if you want fuel for yourself to do hard things, just watch what your kids do. They will do everything. Go and start doing push-ups for the very first time in your life. Everybody that's watching this, go do that in front of your kids. Guarantee you they're going to get right beside you and they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Go tell them to do push-ups. Will they do it? Nope. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And, like, you do that, and that just really kind of just fired me up. Like, because, like, I'm raising 2 little badasses.
Yeah.
And, like, the 4-year-old swims competitively at a 40. She's this tall.
Nice.
And, like, the other one wins triathlons. And I want to raise little badasses. And the only way to do
life's
that
hard,
is by
so
showing them.
it's like you got to be an example and hopefully bring, because I do feel like a lot of parents don't do that stuff, and the kids are watching. If you don't think they're watching, they're watching.
It's all they're doing.
Yeah.
They're not listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I bet you don't listen to music, I would imagine.
When I'm running?
Yeah.
A little bit. I did a little bit on this one, probably for like 2 or 3 hours, but most of the time I don't.
I tried sending you something. I don't know if you listened to it. So there was an AI version of Lose Yourself, the Eminem, but it was a soul version of it made by AI, and it was so badass. I was like, bro,
I gotta go back and listen to that in the chat.
I know you were doing a lot more faith music, like in good chunks of it there.
Yeah.
But I was like, if this is like the perfect song for the moment. Like I was like, I sent it
sweet. I'll
over.
have to
So
go back
yeah,
and listen
yeah,
to
I
that.
have it in that group chat we had for the Moab 240.
Oh,
so,
cool.
Yeah.
check
Because what you said about like the experience is, I think it's once you get into like the dog days of those miles, it's cool to see like where your brain goes when
Yeah.
you have no inputs. Like you don't
Yeah.
have music going, like
No.
you're almost like hallucinating
You're basically a robot.
to a point, and it's like like when you're in the shit of it, like so if you're in your mile 70, like where your brain goes to that at that moment is like a cool thing to like keep track of throughout the race, because you can kind of see like, because I'd imagine, at least for me, when even doing like the lesser races, of like you're looking for every reason possible to be like, I don't need to do this anymore,
Yeah.
and like you start
mean,
like
at times, for sure.
rationalizing, and it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and like to keep track of like where your outs are, almost like
Yeah.
how do you try to convince yourself that you don't have to do this or that you can't do this, like that experience in itself.
It's, I mean, just to be able to overcome that voice is like a superpower.
Yeah.
And that is hard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the voice that everybody's listening to right now. I mean, this is the voice that we all have, this voice, just not in the race context. But it's, it's like, I've had a hard day, so I'm allowed to have the drink, or I've had a hard day, so I'm just going to sit here and scroll on social media. The exact same voice. But yeah, in the race, that thing is like
Yelling at you.
super powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I mean, on the 125, it was getting a hold of me big time. And when I got into mile 100 on that, I was ready to. I never said it, but I was ready to give up.
Yeah.
And if somebody just like, and I think this is, this is a big nugget for everybody. And I'm gonna obviously share this in the context of the race, but in this race, I told my crew, I said, this is the outcome that I want. This is, and for no reason I quit. So I don't care what I say, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, unless I'm about to die. It's the only reason you're allowed to say, okay, we got to go to the hospital. But other than that, there's no way that my crew could give me permission to stop, because that would be out of alignment with my mission, which I made it very clear to the crew. The mission is to finish. And I think that when you think about that in regular life, like, I don't get, like, if you're going through a divorce or, something hard with your kids, it's really important to have a crew around you that you can trust and that they know what the mission, what the goal is. Because then when you are at your weak moment, they don't just tell you what you want to hear, what you feel like you want, like your comfort zone. They give you the best advice based on your mission.
Yep. They keep you accountable too.
Right. And it's just like, because how many times does our family give us the worst advice ever and they let us quit?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they're aligning with what we want today, not what we actually desire in the big, like with the big goal.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big, powerful thing is you got to surround yourself with the right people
That is.
and have these conversations before things get hard.
Yeah. Do you ever have to like try to use like dirty fuel out there? You're like, you see a guy in front of you, you're like, that guy's
Oh, we did that all the time. Taking souls.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. If I had somebody in front of me, I'd probably sped up twice as fast.
yeah. Like, cause even like that Diamondback, the ultra that we both did, there was a, how it's like laps.
Yeah.
And you can't really tell where people are at.
Right.
So there was like a 65-year-old woman, and like she's like chugging along, and me and Jamie were kind of like talking to her for a little bit, like running next to her. And then for like a while in my head, I'm like, God, this lady's probably on like lap 3. Like we're like lap 6 right now. And then I asked her, I'm like, how far are you? And she was ahead of us. Like she was a full lap ahead of us, and she was 65, and she was cruising, made us look so bad. And in my head, I'm like, F that lady. Like I gotta get back around, So that's why
I thought you told me like Brady like crushed your.
He did.
He was passing by like, what
crushed me. Yeah, because like depending on how far ahead somebody is, like you basically run past each other.
Yeah.
I remember there was one point we were like 20 something miles in, and I'm dying on the inside, and you like came past us, and you're like, "What's up, guys?" Like a big smile on your face. And I was like, "F that guy, man."
I was hurting that day too. That was hot.
Yeah, it was. But no, this is also cool. It's crazy. At one point in my life, I definitely want to get to. I'm definitely going to do 100. 240 seems crazy, but just like the marathon to the ultra, it's like once you do the one, there's always the what's next.
It's a belief system.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, that's what it comes down to. I mean, you will start to convince yourself you are capable of doing whatever is next.
So now that you did 240, what's next for Brady? Where are we going from here?
So I was actually, I was convincing myself maybe I should sign up for a 200 or 300 or something. But what's really next is we're going to do 50 miles or 50K in 50 states and raise money for 50 kids and give them 50 wishes through Make-A-Wish Foundation. So that's, I don't know how much of an endurance thing it'll be. Obviously, you got to run 50K a bunch of times, but the goal really is to use the legs to raise money for charity. And we're going to call it like Wishmaker 50. I'm going to, run with cape on and hopefully present these kids with their, with their wish and, just try to do some good in the world and, use the legs for some purpose versus, for ego or whatever else we're doing this for.
No, that's awesome. And in spirit of that, obviously you're still planning it. Where can people find you, support you now? And I don't know if you have this ready yet, but leading up to that, how can people support you with that?
Yeah, so Instagram, probably Instagram or Facebook is the easiest way. So Brady.McDonald84 on both Instagram and Facebook. And then we have 0to100.com as one of our companies and our brands. We do a 30-day challenge, free 30-day challenge, 100-day challenge, which basically is just getting people like no alcohol, eating healthy, getting active 45 minutes a day. We give free hats out for anybody that finishes the 100 days. It's really just like how I got started. And it's free community. So those are the ways that people can get involved.
Are we changing it to 0 to 240 now? I see we got the new.
Well, my wife wants to, she got 0 to finish, so I think she might be changing the brand to 0 to something, whatever it is you want. Yeah. Cause at the end of the day, that's what it is. I mean, we're on this mission all individually on these paths to whatever we desire in life. And I mean, that's what 0 to 100 is really about. Is just like going for your goals and getting after life. Like we're only here for a very limited time. And I think we need to play all out and, we're on this journey. So whatever it is for you, like 5K might be hard for you. And, or 30 days of 45 minutes of exercise might be the hardest thing you've ever done, but that's good. Perfect. Yeah. Start there. And that's what, a lot of what we do with the 0 to 100 company and stuff is just really just educate people, help inspire them, support them, get them into health and fitness. So they can have better lives.
Love it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Hopefully this episode and Brady's story inspired you. If I took anything from it, what I hope you took from it is go do hard things, put some miles on, and change your life. Quit the alcohol, quit the drugs, and if you need fueling support, Jeff Delaney.
Jeff. Yeah, more
Got
Jeff.
Oh.